Hello, and welcome to Weston 101. Thanks so much for joining me for our final Weston 101 for the 2017 season. I'm Piper Goodeve, Director of Education and Artistic Associate here at the Weston Playhouse. Today we will be exploring Neil Simon's Pulitzer Prize-winning comedy, Lost in Yonkers. Neil Simon was born on July 4th, 1927. He grew up in the Bronx during the Great Depression and had a mostly unhappy and unstable childhood. After his discharge from the Air Force, he worked in the mailroom at Warner Brothers in Manhattan, and his first writing job was for a television series called Your Show of Shows. He began writing plays in the late 1950s and had his first Broadway show in 1961, Come Blow Your Horn, which ran for 678 performances. Barefoot in the Park followed in 1963, and The Odd Couple in 1965, for which he won a Tony. During the 1966 season, Neil Simon had 4 shows running on Broadway at the same time: Sweet Charity, The Star-Spangled Girl, The Odd Couple, and Barefoot in the Park. He is known mostly for his comedies, which are centered on marital conflict, infidelity, sibling rivalry, and adolescence. Most of his plays are partly, if not entirely, autobiographical, and focus on his own troubled childhood at different stages in his life. In 1983, he became the only living playwright to have a Broadway theater named after him. The Neil Simon Theater is on 52nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenues. At 90 years old, he has received more Oscar and Tony nominations than any other writer. In recent years, Neil Simon has stopped writing for the theater, but he has published 2 memoirs, Rewrites and The Play Goes On. He was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame and was awarded the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. In 1991, he won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama for Lost in Yonkers. Lost in Yonkers is set in 1942 in Yonkers, New York. We meet Eddie, his 2 boys, Jay and Artie, their aunts, Bella and Gert, Uncle Louie, and Grandma. Jay and Artie's mom has died, and Eddie must take a job as a traveling salesman to pay off some debt. He leaves the boys with his mother, who lives in Yonkers with her grown daughter Bella. The boys must contend with the strange Bella and her secret romance, with their Uncle Louie, a small-time gangster, and their force-of-nature Grandma. Playing Grandma in our Weston production is actress Elizabeth Franz. Elizabeth has had a long and luminous career in the theater. She has worked with Arthur Miller, Neil Simon, and Gene Saks, among others, and won a Tony Award for her performance as Linda Lohman in Death of a Salesman, opposite Brian Dennehy. I had the great pleasure of sitting down with Elizabeth and director Kent Paul to talk about this production, their long friendship, and the magic of a life in the theater.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this after your long rehearsal day. I really appreciate it. I would love to start off by just asking you guys when you first worked together, because I know you have a long history, and
well,
maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sam Waterston, whom we've been friends. We both got into the theater about the same time, and so Sam, when he was at the peak of his popularity with Law and Order, wanted to do a production of Long Day's Journey into Night, and he wanted to do it with his older son James, while James was still young enough to play the younger son in Long Day's Journey. So he had presented me with this very unusual problem that he was free from the middle of May until the 1st of July. So I finally found a theater that where the artistic director had been harassed by the board to get stars to come. So they decided that they were willing to do Long Day's Journey. So Sam was very, very concerned about who would play Mary. And we didn't find anyone who satisfied him. So we were within hours of canceling the production when Elizabeth and I have a mutual friend.
I didn't know this. So this is good.
You're learning this right
I'm
now.
learning it.
Elizabeth and I have a mutual friend who said, well, what about Elizabeth Franz? So I had seen Elizabeth in a play at the Atlantic called Notes from the Blue Route.
Yes, Blue Route.
Blue Route.
Route.
And I had also seen her in the Death of a Salesman on Broadway, for which she won a Tony. And so I was very excited about that idea. And Sam had never seen Elizabeth, but he thought, if I thought she was a good idea, he was willing to go along with it. Their natures are different, so I somewhat hesitate to be illusioned, but I sometimes speak of Elizabeth as being the Judi Dench of the American theater, both for the greatness and for the joy in the work and the willingness to go anywhere if she likes the role. So it was sort of mid-career when she did Buried Child in London, but she was given an Olivier Award as Best Newcomer.
Newcomer of the Year.
Excellent.
And Judi Dench gave it to me. And we had been vying for, a Tony. So we knew each other a little bit. And so she presented this, and we had a big laugh about it because the Best Newcomer of the Year at the age of, 68 years old. So.
I think that's wonderful. I really do, especially, today people are so concerned with youth and everything is so instant. And,
Always.
if you're 28 years old, you're past your prime and, and I just
it's
think
dreadful.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
And so I think it's really inspiring.
I never played an ingenue. I never played anyone my own age in the theater until now. I've always played this age in the theater, but now I don't have to, as Hal Holbrook says, I don't have to put on makeup anymore. I just go out and do it, It's not 2 hours.
Right, of prep, right?
No, forget it,
Well, you've made such an amazing career of playing iconic roles in American theater. Buried Child, View from the Bridge, Long Day's Journey into Night, Death of a Salesman, for which you won the Tony, Lion in Winter, Glass Menagerie, Sister Mary Ignatius Explains It All for You, Mornings at 7. These are iconic American plays, and
I've
also
been very fortunate.
and also the original Brighton Beach memoirs. And I would
Neil
love
Simon.
to
Yes.
Neil Simon,
Our playwright now.
our playwright, exactly.
When I did Brighton Beach, it was one of the plays when I read it, I was so touched by it. And then there's a long history because of working with Neil for that show of other things.
Yeah.
And he's a wild, sort of not very funny man in life, and very serious, and he doesn't really know how funny he is, and he truly is. And I got to do Broadway Bound, the second one. I was told I was going to do it first, and then I found out in the paper that someone else was doing it.
And found out in the paper.
Yeah, in the paper. And Neil and I had great conversations about it. But that's the way.
So this was the mother whom she played in Brighton Beach Memoir, who's been continued in Broadway Bound.
Right. And so when Linda Lavin left, they called me. I was on a cruise in the north, as far as the ice flow would allow you to go, with my very ill husband at that time. And they would not take no for an answer. And they weren't offering me the part. They wanted me to audition for it. And I kept saying, no.
No.
Finally, and I couldn't get them off my back, and I finally said, all right, as soon as I get back, I will come in and audition for you. And it wasn't to take over for Linda, it was to take over, to go on the road with it. And I thought, what? I don't know what they're doing. And I went on the stage to audition, and I had propped every piece of furniture, every plate, everything with the prop guy. So these things were very special to me from Brighton Beach. And so I went there and I touched the table and I broke out in tears. And I said, I know it's my job to do this, but I have to go. I'm sorry, but I have to go off stage and get my composure back. And they said, oh, we don't know why we're doing this. And I said, you want to see this, so I'm going to do it. It's my job. So I did. I managed to get through it. And when I got home, they called and offered me Broadway, the part. And I was well worth my while, I must say. I had a first nomination of a Tony, and walking to the Tony Awards, I was told by the producers, you're not winning. You know, because it doesn't mean anything if you win. People don't know who really you are. But Matthew Broderick will win because he's a young man, he's got a whole career, and I mean, it was, and it was true, you know.
Yeah.
And then I had to hear Frank Rich say, right before the Tonys, the man is very funny, but he'll never write a funny play for me.
Oh.
And so, I mean, the politics
Yeah.
of the business is, so I've been very fortunate of escaping that. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Because of the knowledge that I have. And so I just go anywhere where the part I really am interested in.
Yes.
So.
And that's why we're all
And
so
that's-
lucky to have you here in Weston.
That's
Yeah.
I
good.
mean, I think it's perhaps interesting to talk about why I like working with Elizabeth so much. I mean, as I've said, I think she's a national resource. I think she's one of the great living American actors. And you know, that's not her fault. There's nothing she can do about it. So she just does what she does. But it means that whenever she walks into a rehearsal, it raises the level of what everybody is doing. So, I mean, I immediately noticed that in Long Day's Journey, that it wasn't intentional, but I didn't tell Sam Waterston that Elizabeth had played the role before. So I remember at the first reading, she had an understanding, you know, of the psychological makeup of the role and also, you know, the shape of the music that just astonished him. And she had him in the palm of her hand for the rest of the run. But I also, so she raises the level of what's done with a play just by being there. It's also, I like a very playful atmosphere in rehearsal. I like collaboration, and I like because I think what we offer should be fun. I like the actors to have fun while they're doing it. And Elizabeth has an incredibly playful nature and contributes
I'm
to
very
that.
naughty. I am. But always have been.
That's great.
I mean, this young actor we found here, Luke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just astonishing the way he's taken his place among really top professional actors.
Unbelievable.
And
I don't know how he does it. But well, and also Michael, the other boy.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them have a knowledge of simplicity and what comedy really is. And that's very difficult with young people.
Definitely.
you know, and they are so serious that it's doubly funny when they say the line. They're just so serious about it. It's life or death, and you just, it turns into like a black comedy.
Right. Elizabeth, what is your favorite thing about Grandma? You said before that you're now the right age to be playing these roles.
Well, you know, just to be back with Neil Simon, he's a genius
Yeah.
at comedy because everything is serious to him.
Yeah.
And that becomes, and there's nothing like playing him.
Mm.
She's had 6 children, and she's a survivor of the war, a survivor of everything, and she has taught that without love to her children. She never indulged in love, except with her husband. She had 6 children, so there must have been something somewhere, you know. And but she was very restrained. I'm not that at all. And I thought it's a great challenge to be that, but she knows everything that's going on. And she can tease a little bit, but they're so afraid of her that they
don't know
see
that
it.
it's teasing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's great.
So there's all those aspects. She's a never-ending character that will fascinate you.
I don't know the body of Neil Simon's work as well as Elizabeth does, but one of the things that's, I think, fascinating about the play is that it's both very moving and very funny.
It's the deepest I think he's ever gone in his writing.
Yeah.
All autobiographical. Well, I think he can't write anything that isn't. I mean, even some of his light plays, you know, what's the suite, Plaza Suite?
Plaza Suite,
Yeah.
He had several wives, so everything came from something. And I do think that this is him growing up with a grandmother. No, I grew up here in the theater. This is where I was really deeply trained, was over at Dorset.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
that. Wonderful.
15 on and off seasons
Oh my
because
God.
I'd go out
15?
and do something. Yeah, I'd come back and do a play. No, but the first 3 years were 16 weeks straight
Wow, yeah.
and into a fall season. And I was here when Weston burned
Oh, yeah.
down, and we came over with all these lights and flats and things, and we
my
built
gosh.
a stage on the green so that the whole season could go
Could
on.
keep going.
Yeah, so finally.
Coming to Vermont is also, for me, a return to where I started. My very first job in the theater was with a Shakespeare company that no longer exists called the Champlain Shakespeare Festival.
Oh,
wow.
yes.
It was in
did-
Burlington.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Burlington.
And when I graduated from theater school, it was my
Gosh,
first summer job.
it all comes back to Vermont,
Yeah.
right?
And I can't tell you, it's like being home. I drive these streets coming to rehearsal, and I feel so at home and so comfortable, and I just feel, well, that's why I always loved it. I mean, I just love this place. And people, you know, I take walks, and people come by, everybody waves. I don't know who they are. I mean, I drive somebody, I pass ladies in their garden, And they look around and they wave and I wave at them. And it's like, I live here all of a sudden. I've always wanted to. Now I'm living here.
For both of you, what is something that you hope that audiences here in Weston will take away from seeing Lost in Yonkers and from Neil Simon's work, if they're not familiar with it or if they are already?
You go first. I'll be like Artie. Say, why don't you go, Jay? Why don't you tell Grandma why you want to live with her?
I saw that question on your list, and of course it reminded me of someone asking Harold Pinter what one of his plays was about, and he said 45 minutes. Whatever, I don't know, whatever I think the play is about, I hope I've gotten into the play. Well, as I've said to the cast, when I first read the play, what fascinated me about it was that all of the characters, every one of them, faces life crises, and they all have solutions. There aren't any whiners in the play. There aren't any, they all have ideas about how to solve their problems and they go after them. And I guess that's what I like about the play.
Yeah, and that has to do with Grandma, because she made them survivors.
Yeah.
And so they, whether they know it or not, they draw from this incredible source, which is, and it is, they're fun, they will find themselves crying and laughing, and there's nothing more magical than that. I mean, really. And for me, coming back and working with Kent and wanting to see what he does with Neil Simon, because I'd only worked with Gene Sachs on Neil Simon, and I think the truth that is being found in rehearsal in these characters is stunning. It's truly stunning.
It's a remarkable cast. I love actors.
We took that picture because everybody looks alike.
Yes.
It looks, they all look as if they're from the same family. You know.
That was I was really after that in the casting. I wanted a family, and they look alike.
And they're good. They're really. You know, you find in magical places like here in Vermont, you find unknown actors you've not ever heard of. Because they're, I mean, they are superb. There's a lot of superb actors out there. And it's sad that some never get to where they should be, you know. I can tell one story that I was doing Sister Mary at the time, and he at that time was married to Marcia Mason, and Marcia had seen Sister Mary and said, Neil, you have to go and see this woman for Brighton Beach. And he said, I don't have time. You know, I go. Anyway, he sent a note and said, if you come, he said, I never go off Broadway. I only go to Broadway. And I sent a note back to him. And I said, well, I don't play Broadway. I only play off Broadway. and that was just to go and audition for him. And then he finally broke down. He found every cast member off Broadway. He found Matthew, he found Jelko, myself. We were all off Broadway in a play, all new actors that he had never heard of. And so, but I had to play that game with him.
What was the balance between Gene Sachs and Neil Simon in the casting? I mean, did Gene Sachs have any voice?
Hardly, hardly.
So Neil Simon found
He
the
really-
actors and
yeah.
then, was he there all the time in rehearsal?
Neil,
Yeah.
yes, until I finally said, we had Piper Laurie at one time, and your name. And she was terrified of Neil. And so she could not learn the lines. And every night I was with her. She knew the lines, we were going through them, and the moment Neil was in the rehearsal, and I finally, I had no experience with Broadway or these people. I finally said, we've got to have some time without you, Neil. We have to try some things. If I want to throw a plate, just to throw a plate to see how it feels, he'd fire me. I said, well, Neil was there. And Gene said, that's right, he would. Maybe I would too. And I said, but we need time. And so she was very good. And then when he came back for the last 3 hours of rehearsal, nil. She just was terrified.
So would Neil Simon interrupt rehearsals, or did he simply sit back and take
No,
notes?
he'd sit back, but when I asked for a few hours a day, he said, oh, well, then I can go do some rewrites. And I said, yes, you can do whatever you want. And that was, so he was very, he wouldn't interrupt, but they would have meetings.
I see.
And he would write down notes.
Uh-huh.
So,
Did he make many changes in rehearsal?
yes, oh, yes, he did. And that they were for the better.
Uh-huh.
Do
So
you
when he
still-
heard it,
Yes, he knew it was right.
uh-huh,
And he knew it was wrong from coming. Once he fell in love with the cast, and there was nothing not to fall in love with, all of them, all of us. But he knew when it was wrong, when it didn't fit well. He was a genius at that.
uh-huh.
So he'd go and he'd change it. And then you'd just say the line. It was so honest and truthful. It was night and day. But like you watching the actors saying, I'm not believing this.
Well, yes, but I don't have a playwright sitting behind me,
Yeah. I'm glad.
in which
I'm glad you don't.
in which you wonder, so what's he thinking about what I'm thinking?
Yeah, it's nice in Weston that you can just do the work,
But that's
right?
all.
That you can
That's
just
all we
focus
have
in
here.
Yep.
It's the actors and,
And the director and
yeah.
the words and
Yeah. And
you have the
it's
space and the quiet.
beautiful.
yeah.
And no politics going on.
Yep.
They all are happy we're all here. And we're gonna make magic.